How many of y'all, when you studied anatomy, you looked at the cervical vertebrae, you looked at the thoracic vertebrae, you looked at the lumbar, you're like, okay, the cervicals are smaller, they've got these little foramen on the side that vertebral artery is going to go through. Look at the thoracics, and you're like, okay, well, there's a spinous process. And the lumbar, they're bigger, right? And that's about all you saw. But as you begin to study more and more and more, you start to see the nuances of each one of the regions, the cervical, the thoracic, and the lumbar. And I'll tell you, to this day, it's embarrassing to me to tell you what I learned just this semester. It's unbelievable. But one of the things that's fascinating is, of course, there's the body, but you have, and there's, of course, the vertebral arch, and vertebral arch is made up of the pedicle and the lamina. There's a vertebral arch, which is, I tell my students all the time, there's only two parts of the vertebrae. There's the body and the vertebral arch, and then the process is coming off. That's all you really got. If you pay attention to that, it becomes very, very simple. Anatomy is very simple. But the parts you have to take care of are the superior articular processes and the inferior, because they're going to make, of course, the Z-joint. And where they are as compared to the body are going to be very important to the movement of that vertebrae. So let's talk about the cervical spine real quick. Movements of the vertebrae are freer in the cervical and the lumbar regions. The cervical spine does flexion, extension, lateral flexion, and rotation of the neck, and are especially free because IV disc, although thin relative to the other disc, are thick relative to the size of the vertebral bodies on this level. Articular surfaces of the Z-joints are relatively large. They're almost horizontal, and you can see them right there. There's the Z-joints right there. That's where the IVD is, body, and there are the Z-joints, almost horizontal. In this region, the reason why there's so much movement is joint capsules of the Z-joints are loose, and the neck is relatively slender. You have to, Medina talks about this. I encourage you to go get the book, Brain Rules. It's unbelievable. Medina talks about that. What's one of the reasons for sinuses in the skull? One of the reasons for sinuses in the skull is to lighten the skull. If you didn't have, if the sinuses were filled in with bone, the skull would be about 15 to 20, maybe 25 pounds heavier than it is right now. Go to the zoo, go look at a baboon. What are they doing? Why do they not stand up? One of the reasons a baboon doesn't stand up is because its head's so big. What are they doing? They're like this, right? And when they stand up, they're like this, and then they what? They collapse back down because the head's too big. That's why their upper body is so huge. The human body is designed in such a way to be able to hold this, which is your world, right here. And the cervical spine has to be able to do that. Unbelievable. Incredible stuff.